We always get a lot of these questions regarding some form of like either suffering or like this question specifically says, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? And I'm going to take a stab at it. Maybe Will wants to add on to it as well. But every worldview has to answer that question. It's not just Christianity. And I think we as Christians often feel like we're the only ones that have to answer, why would a good God allow suffering and evil? When you're currently going through suffering or somebody's going through suffering, I don't think there's actually adequate answers for what they're going through. I think actually the best thing we can do is just be with that person and listen. So this isn't, my answer right here is not for you to then take to someone that's currently in just turmoil. It's often far past the logical and it's purely emotional because it's just a lived, terrible experience. But there comes a point in all of our lives where we actually have to sit there and say, okay, suffering and evil exists. Bad things are happening to me. I initially have two options. I can say, okay, because of that, God doesn't exist, or God does exist. Well, let's say I take the first option. Well, the first option, say, if God doesn't exist, everything about this is an accident. This is a cosmic accident, everything. If the naturalist worldview says all of us exist because time plus chance plus matter happened. There is no meaning outside of what you decide meaning is. There really is no purpose. We are here and we're indebted to natural selection, which is survival of the fittest. Now, you may believe that, and you may be a person that says, but I still love life, but what I would say is if that's your foundation for your understanding of suffering, it's that you have no ability to be morally outraged about the suffering you see. It's just what happens. It's literally just chance, and we've been dying ever since humanity existed. Wouldn't you think we would have evolved to the point that dying doesn't affect us anymore? Like seeing a loved one die shouldn't, like we should, like for some reason we still sit here and say, why is this so wrong? When from the naturalist point of view, it's say it's actually not wrong, it's right. It's the way things go. So I say that doesn't, I'm not saying that's completely incomplete, but I do feel like it's difficult. It makes it more difficult to try and answer the question. So then you go very quickly and say, okay, so there is a God. But which God? What do I go with it? And I'm not going to get into every world religion, but I'm going to tell you the world religions, as Tim said, they say very different things on suffering. Some are going to tell you it's your fault. Some are going to tell you it's an illusion. Some are going to say you deserve it. What does Christianity actually say when it comes to suffering? Because it doesn't give us a complete answer. This is why God allows suffering. But it does give us clues. The first thing it does is that it acknowledges that suffering is wrong. Like that inner assumption in you saying, why does this feel wrong? The Bible says you're right. Some worldviews don't tell you that. What's another thing? In God becoming man and God himself suffering, think of that. No world religion dare say that God himself suffered. God himself suffered. So that when we're going through suffering, we know that we're not alone. And the final thing, what does it say? It's like, in the end, he's going to make it all right. Those are some crazy claims. They could be fantasy. But what gives us actually the most hope in this world that we're in? Because that's what we're craving actually in the midst of suffering is hope. Can I get through this? Is there something worthwhile? Because what the cross tells me is that he's not indifferent. That God's not just sitting up there saying, you know what? Sorry, it's not the way I wanted it. He actually said, no, this is so broken, this is so flawed, I'm actually going to enter in myself. I think the way to answer this question actually, why does God allow good things, or why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? I think the better question, and for us to be able to answer that question, is asking ourselves, why did the worst thing happen to the best person that ever lived? And when we answer that question, I think we get to get a glimpse and a clue of the answer to the rest of them.